The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns of Willow Creek, a quiet suburban neighborhood governed by a zealous homeowners association. Emma Larson, a single mother and graphic designer, had moved here seeking peace after a tumultuous divorce. Her cozy two-story home with its white picket fence and blooming hydrangeas was her sanctuary, or so she thought. The trouble started 3 months ago when Karen Mitchell, the HOA president, began her relentless campaign of inspections. Karen, a woman in her late 50s with a penchant for floral blouses and an unyielding sense of authority, believed she had the right to enter any home to enforce the HOA's strict rules. At first, it was small things, a note about Emma's mailbox being one shade off regulation blue, or a warning about her son's skateboard left on the driveway. But soon, Karen's visits grew invasive. Emma would come home to find her curtains rearranged, her kitchen drawers rummaged through, and once a half-eaten apple pie missing from her counter. Karen claimed she had a master key for emergencies, but Emma knew better. This was trespassing. The neighbors whispered about Karen's overreach, but no one dared confront her. Emma, however, wasn't one to back down. She installed a doorbell camera, hoping to catch Karen in the act, but the footage was always conveniently blurry, or Karen claimed she was checking for safety violations. Frustration simmered in Emma's chest as she realized legal action would be slow and costly. She needed a plan, one that would expose Karen without escalating the feud into a full-blown war. That's when the idea struck, a trap, subtle but undeniable, to prove Karen's intrusions once and for all. The weeks following Karen's latest visit were a blur of sleepless nights for Emma. She'd lie awake, listening for the faintest creak of her floorboards, wondering if Karen was snooping again. Her son, Ethan, a lanky 14-year-old with a knack for mischief, noticed his mom's stress and suggested they get even. Emma hesitated. She didn't want to stoop to Karen's level, but the thought of Karen's smug face pushed her over the edge. She recalled a prank from her college days, rigging a door with washable paint to mark an intruder. It was perfect, nonviolent, legal, and humiliating. Emma spent days researching the best approach, settling on a pressure-sensitive mechanism hidden in the doorframe. She ordered a vibrant blue, non-toxic, washable paint and enlisted Ethan's help to rig the trap. They worked late into the night, giggling like conspirators as they installed a small canister above the front door. When triggered, it would release a fine mist of paint, coating anyone who entered without disabling the mechanism first. Emma tested it meticulously, ensuring it wouldn't harm her or Ethan, who knew to step over the pressure plate. The trap was set, and Emma felt a mix of excitement and dread. Would Karen take the bait? Or would this backfire, giving Karen more ammunition to terrorize her? As she locked the door that night, Emma whispered to herself, "Let's see you talk your way out of this one, Karen." The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of her phone buzzing with a motion alert from her doorbell camera. Heart pounding, she opened the app and saw Karen's unmistakable silhouette, floral blouse, oversized sunglasses, fumbling with a key at her front door. The timestamp read 6:47 a.m. Emma held her breath as the footage showed Karen stepping inside, oblivious to the trap. A faint hiss echoed through the house, inaudible on the camera, but Emma knew the paint had deployed. She rushed downstairs, Ethan trailing behind, to find the front door ajar and blue paint splattered across the entryway rug. Karen was nowhere in sight, but the evidence was clear, streaks of blue on the door frame and a faint trail leading outside. Emma's heart raced with triumph, but she needed more than a messy rug to prove her case. She checked the camera footage again, zooming in to see faint blue smudges on Karen's hands as she hurried away, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Emma saved the clip, her mind racing with next steps. She could confront Karen directly, but that risked escalation. Instead, she decided to let Karen stew, knowing the paint would be impossible to hide. By noon, whispers spread through the neighborhood. Karen had been spotted at the community center, her hands and blouse stained blue, frantically scrubbing at them in the bathroom. Neighbors exchanged knowing glances, and Emma felt a flicker of satisfaction. But Karen wasn't one to go down quietly. Emma knew she'd need to play her cards carefully to turn this small victory into a lasting solution. The day unfolded with a tense anticipation. Emma kept her routine normal, dropping Ethan off at school and working on a freelance project. But her mind was on Karen. By afternoon, a curt email arrived from the HOA, summoning Emma to an emergency meeting that evening to discuss vandalism on her property. Emma smirked. Karen was trying to flip the narrative. She prepared meticulously, backing up the camera footage to a cloud drive and printing stills of Karen's blue-stained hands. Ethan, ever the strategist, suggested inviting a few sympathetic neighbors to the meeting for backup. Emma reached out to Mrs. Patel, a retired lawyer who'd clashed with Karen over her rose bushes, and Tom, a gruff mechanic who'd once caught Karen measuring his lawn with a ruler. Both agreed to attend, eager to see Karen's reign challenged. As evening approached, Emma dressed in her sharpest blazer, feeling like a general heading into battle. The community center was packed, the air thick with curiosity. Karen stood at the front, her hands scrubbed raw but still faintly blue, her expression a mix of indignation and panic. She opened the meeting by accusing Emma of booby-trapping her home, claiming the paint was an assault. Emma stayed calm, letting Karen dig her own grave. When her turn came, she presented the footage, her voice steady as she explained Karen's repeated trespassing. The room buzzed with murmurs as the video played, showing Karen's unauthorized entry. Mrs. Patel stood, citing HOA bylaws that prohibited board members from entering homes without consent. The tide was turning, but Emma knew Karen wouldn't surrender easily. Karen's face flushed crimson as the video ended, her composure crumbling. She stammered, claiming the footage was doctored and that she'd entered Emma's home to investigate. A reported gas leak. The lie was flimsy. Nobody had reported a gas leak, and the neighbors' skeptical glances told Emma she was gaining ground. But Karen was a master of deflection. She pivoted, accusing Emma of violating HOA rules by installing an unauthorized device with the paint trap and demanded a $5,000 fine. Emma countered with a prepared statement, citing state laws on trespassing and privacy, thanks to Mrs. Patel's legal advice. She distributed copies of the HOA charter, highlighting clauses that limited the board's authority. The room grew restless as Karen's accusations faltered. Tom, the mechanic, stood up and recounted his own run-ins with Karen's overreach, emboldening others to speak. A young couple shared how Karen had inspected their garage without permission, and an elderly man grumbled about her fining him for a bird feeder. The meeting turned chaotic, with Karen shouting to regain control. Emma seized the moment, proposing a vote to remove Karen as HOA president for abuse of power. The motion passed narrowly, but Karen's allies, mostly older residents loyal to her, vowed to fight it. As the meeting adjourned, Karen shot Emma a venomous glare, promising this isn't over. Emma knew the war was far from won, but she'd landed a critical blow. The days after the meeting were a whirlwind. Karen's allies circulated a petition to reinstate her, claiming Emma's stunt with the paint was dangerous and divisive. Emma, undeterred, rallied her supporters, organizing a neighborhood watch group to monitor Karen's actions. She also filed a formal complaint with the state's HOA Oversight Board, attaching her footage and witness statements. Ethan, meanwhile, became a local hero among the neighborhood kids, who dubbed the paint trap the Karen Crusher. But Emma worried about retaliation. Sure enough, Karen struck back, posting flyers accusing Emma of endangering the community with her toxic paint. The claim was absurd. The paint was non-toxic, as Emma proved with the product label, but mud sticks. Some neighbors, swayed by Karen's smear campaign, gave Emma cold stares. Others, like Mrs. Patel and Tom, doubled down on their support, helping her canvass the neighborhood to gather signatures for a permanent change in HOA leadership. Emma also upgraded her security, adding a deadbolt and a second camera angled to catch the back door. Late one night, her phone buzzed again, a motion alert. The footage showed Karen skulking near her backyard, peering through a window. No paint this time, but the video was another nail in Karen's coffin. Emma forwarded it to the oversight board, her resolve hardening. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. This was about protecting her home, her son, and her neighbors from a tyrant in a floral blouse. The State Oversight Board scheduled a hearing, and Emma spent weeks preparing. She compiled a dossier, timestamps of Karen's intrusions, neighbor testimonies, and even a chemical analysis of the paint to debunk Karen's toxic claims. The hearing was held in a sterile municipal building, with Karen flanked by her loyalists, her hands still faintly blue despite her efforts to scrub them clean. Emma presented her case methodically, letting the evidence speak for itself. The footage of Karen's intrusions played on a projector, drawing gasps from the board. Mrs. Patel testified about Karen's history of overreach, and Tom added a heartfelt plea about the neighborhood's need for trust. Karen's defense was weak. She rambled about her dedication to community standards and accused Emma of orchestrating a witch hunt. The board wasn't swayed. They ruled in Emma's favor, ordering Karen to step down as HOA president and pay a fine for trespassing. The room erupted in murmurs, and Karen stormed out, vowing to appeal. Emma felt a weight lift, but she knew Karen's pride wouldn't let her quit. Sure enough, the next day, Karen's allies filed a lawsuit against Emma, claiming defamation and property damage from the paint. Emma wasn't surprised. She'd expected Karen to lash out. With Mrs. Patel's help, she hired a lawyer and countersued for harassment and legal fees. The neighborhood was now split, with some rallying behind Emma's fight for freedom, and others clinging to Karen's promise of order. Emma realized this battle was bigger than her doorstep. It was about who controlled Willow. The lawsuit dragged on, straining Emma's finances and nerves. Ethan tried to keep her spirits up, designing a mock superhero poster of Blue Paint Avenger to hang in her office. Emma laughed, but the stress was real. She leaned on her allies, hosting strategy sessions at her kitchen table with Mrs. Patel, Tom, and others. They uncovered more dirt on Karen, years of misused HOA funds, favoritism toward her friends, and even forged signatures on rule changes. The evidence was damning, and Emma's lawyer used it to push for a settlement. Meanwhile, Karen's smear campaign intensified. She spread rumors that Emma was planning to sell her house and ruin property values. Emma countered with transparency, posting her evidence online for the neighborhood to see. The tide shifted as more residents joined her side, tired of Karen's reign. One night, a group of neighbors showed up at Emma's door with a homemade banner reading Team Blue Paint. They shared stories of Karen's bullying, and Emma felt a surge of community she hadn't known since moving to Willow Creek. The lawsuit settled out of court. Karen dropped her claims in exchange for Emma not pressing criminal charges. Karen was barred from HOA leadership for 5 years, and a new president, Mrs. Patel, was elected. Emma's trap had worked, not just to catch Karen, but to unite a fractured neighborhood. As she repainted her doorframe, without the trap this time, Emma felt a hard-won peace settle over her home. With Karen's influence dismantled, Willow Creek began to heal. The new HOA, led by Mrs. Patel, focused on fairness and transparency, revising bylaws to limit board power and protect homeowner privacy. Emma's home was hers again. No more uninvited guests, no more rearranged curtains. Ethan, proud of his mom's victory, started a coding club with neighborhood kids, teaching them to build their own security apps. Emma, inspired by the ordeal, launched a blog about navigating HOA disputes, sharing her story to empower others. The blue paint incident became local legend, with neighbors jokingly calling Emma's house Fort Blue. Karen, meanwhile, kept a low profile, her floral blouses rarely seen at community events. Some said she was planning to move, unable to face the community she'd once ruled. Emma didn't care. She was done with grudges. She focused on rebuilding, planting a new garden with Ethan and hosting barbecues for her newfound friends. The doorbell camera stayed, but its alerts were now mundane. Deliveries, neighbors dropping by, kids playing. One evening, as Emma watched the sunset from her porch, she reflected on the fight. It had started with a simple trap, a splash of blue paint, but it had grown into something bigger, a stand for her home, her rights, and her community. Willow Creek wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and she'd defend it, paint or no paint, for as long as she lived there.